I like to sometimes mention some of these services that we're using.
Yeah.
Forwarded with we don't have any like monetary affiliation with these people other than we pay some of them to use their services. So we'll talk about another one that we use today, and I'd be interested in, after we've been using them for about 6 months, what you think about them. And Basecamp. I know that, especially with businesses forced during this pandemic to go online more, have more organization, more structure, more fluid connectivity, and conversations, and everyone being on the same page within their team as well as the account or the client.
Right.
Having the ability to control all that is the point of Basecamp, correct?
Yeah, project management.
Management
across the board.
What would you consider them as a service? Because Basecamp is essentially a service, right? They're a subscription-based service.
Subscription-based service. That would, I think it's exactly what you're talking about. You have a connection point where you can message, you can communicate with the clients, but then you can have your own private section with your team, right? So it gives you
you can drop the wall and let everyone be in on it, and you can decide which folders and which thing within each account. What did we use before that? Just Slack, we were using Monday.com. We were using a combination of a bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
Slack, Monday, this, that. Do you think Basecamp has been a worthy investment, A? And do you think that, what do you think? Is there any chance you get away from them at some point and move on to something else, or have you been like totally content?
Yeah, so I think,
would you suggest other entrepreneurs and teams to use them?
Yeah, so I mean, Basecamp has been, kind of that software that's been around for a long time. Like, we've used it before. You and me have used it before we even started the company, before Joe to Joe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, I was comfortable in that space. And, there's Trello, there's like 3 other ones, right? The three main ones, like Trello.
Right.
So for me, what was great about Basecamp is that we had a decent amount of clients that we could separate in those projects, and then also have our headquarters up at top, right? So there's the organization. I don't think it's it's the jack of all trades, right? It's not the best at communicating, it's not the best at organization, but it does both.
And that's why I like the name, and it's Basecamp, but I like the word camp in it.
Right.
Because it kind of feels campy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It honestly feels like it's not like this robust, super sleek thing. It's just like it's very practical.
It's very, very practical, and I mean they're missing features for sure.
Yeah,
right? Like just like any other program. But
how much is it per month? Did you already say that? I already asked that.
I think it's $99 a month.
It's $100 a month.
It's $100 a month.
Do you think it's worth it? And like, do you think it'd be worth it if you had 3 people on a team or 1 person on a team? Like, when does it become worth it? And do you think it's worth it?
I mean, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it very early on if you're debating if you're about to either start a company, if you have team members. I would say you have to. I would suggest that you have a team. Otherwise, you're kind of, why even have it? Obviously, but
right.
I would say,
well, for client, be a business to consumer like relationship.
It's beautiful.
It could still work without a team, even if you're freelancing, I suppose. But you're thinking like you should have a team probably if you're gonna use it. Otherwise, maybe you don't need it.
If you're gonna use it, yeah. I mean, I think for us, like I said, like what's so great about it is that we can just add team members who we want, and the better point for this for Basecamp in terms of collaboration is that you can add other vendors, right? So we're working with a client who works with a videographer, or they work with a different production team or a different designer, right? Or whatever, right? They're a product manager. And we can bring them all together on this project that we're working on with them, right, as a collaboration, and that's really nice, because then you can identify who's from this team, who's from that team, put it all together. However, that's also my conflict with Basecamp is that you get lost there sometimes. Like you could get lost in this thread where you're just commenting over and over again.
Well,
and you gotta scroll down.
That's a great point actually,
right?
Because the thing I like about Basecamp is that you can create these folders.
Yeah.
And you can, people can either upload to them or start a message thread on them, or you're on a full-on chat like it's old school AIM or something, and like all that stuff. But the problem is then you'll have like this thread, and then like a client or maybe an editor or something like uploads to the thread and not to the docs and files folder.
Right.
And now, so the client sees it, they use it, this or that, but then you have to find it again in a month. And you're like, uh-oh, now what?
Yeah.
So you really have to organize it really well. If you have a bunch of people and they kind of are like, oh yeah, no, I don't know, I uploaded it to the thread. It's like, well, now we can't find it.
Yeah.
Or, now we don't know there's a million things in that thread or versions of that. Which one was it? And it becomes a hassle.
That does.
So if you organize it right, I've been pretty happy with Basecamp.
I think so. I mean, you could do.
I still don't chat with people through it, but we organize finals and stuff on them. It all because it keeps a good record. If anyone's ever like, oh well, they didn't give me this or I didn't do this, it's like no, everything's here. It's dated. Everyone was aware.
Yep.
It shows everything. So like that's a really good part of Basecamp though. It does add that layer of accountability and liability protection.
Yeah, I think it's great for that. I think it's also great for conversation, a filter of conversation. If you're a creative agency right now, or you're even if you're a freelancer, you're getting hit up on your phone, you're getting text messages. If you have Basecamp and you clearly communicate, hey, listen, like I'm going to use Basecamp, I need you to use it. Now all of a sudden that person's not hitting you up at 2 a.m. They're going to Basecamp and talking about whatever it is, whatever the issue is. So it's a nice way to have that as a buffer, for communication, especially if you have team members, right? Because somebody else can pick up the slack.
Right.
It's ironic, but yeah.
Yeah.